Hello, my dear students. Welcome to Teacher at Home. Today, class, we are going to learn the 8th chapter, Going Places. About the author. A. Barton is a modern writer who lives in Zurich and writes in English. In the story Going Places, the Barton explores the theme of adolescent fantasy and hero worship. Notice the expression in the text, infer their meaning from the context. Incongruity, prodigy, shuffle, solitary elm, arcade, amber glow, wharf, pangs of doubt. When I leave, Sophie said, coming home from school, I am going to have a boutique. Jancy, linking arms with her along the street, looked doubtful. Takes money? Sob, something like that. I'll find it, Sophie said, staring far down the street. Taking you a long time to save that much. Well, I'll be a manager then, yes, of course, to begin with. Till I have got enough, but anyway, I know just how it's all going to look. They wouldn't make you manager straight off sock. I'll be like Mary Quant, Sophie said. I'll be a natural. They'll see it from the start. I'll have the most amazing shop this city ever seen. Jancy, knowing they were both earmarked for the biscuit factory, became melancholy. She wished Sophie wouldn't say these things. When they reached Sophie Street, Jancy said, It's only a few months away now, Soph, you really should be sensible. They don't pay well for shop work. You know that. Your dad would never allow it. Or an actress, now there's real money in that. Yes, and I could maybe have the boutique on the side. Actors don't work full time, do they? Anyway, that, or a fashion designer, something a bit sophisticated. And she turned in through the open street door, leaving Jancy standing in the rain. If ever I come into money, I'll be buy a boutique. Ah, if you ever come into money. If you ever come into money, you will buy as a blessed, decent house to live in. Thank you very much. Sophie's father was scooping shepherd's pea into his mouth as hard as he could go, his bum face still grimy and sweat marked from the day. She thinks money grows on trees, doesn't she, Dad? Said little Derek, hanging on the back of his father's chair. Their mother sighed. Sophie watched her back, stooped over the sink, and wondered at the incongruity of the delicate bow which fastened her apron strings. The delicate seeming bow and the crooked back. The evening had already blacked in the windows, and the small room was steamy from the stove and cluttered with the heavy breathing man in his vest at the table and the dirty washing piled up in the corner. Sophie felt a tightening in her throat. She went to look for her brother Geoff. He was kneeling on the floor in the next room, tinkering with a part of his motorcycle over some newspapers spread on the carpet. He was 3 years out of school, an apprentice mechanic traveling to his work each day to the far side of the city. He was almost grown up now, and she suspected areas of his book about which she knew nothing, about which he never spoke. He said little at all, ever voluntarily. Words have to be prized out of him like stones out of the ground, and she was jealous of his silence. When he wasn't speaking, it was as though he was away somewhere, out there in the world, in those places she had never been. Whether they were only the outlying districts of the city or places beyond in the surrounding country, we knew. They attained a special fascinating simply because they were unknown to her and remained out of her reach. Perhaps there were also people, exotic, interesting people of whom, in our it was possible, though he was quiet and he didn't make new friends easily. She longed to know them. She wished she could be admitted more deeply into her brother's affections, and that some day he might take her with him. Though their father forbade it, Geoff had never expressed an opinion. She knew he thought her too young, and she was impatient. She was conscious of the vast world out there waiting for her, and she knew instinctively that she would feel as at home there as in the city, which had always been her home. It expectantly awaited her arrival. She saw herself riding there behind Joe. He wore new shining black leathers, and she was yellow dressed with a kind of cape that flew out behind. There was a sound of applause as the world rose to greet them. He was frowning at the oily come on and he cradled in his hands as though it were a small dumb animal and he was willing it to speak. I met Danny Cassie, Sophie said. He looked around abruptly. Where? In the arcade, funnily enough. It's never true. I did too. You told that? She shook her head, chastened at his awareness that he was always he first to share her secrets. I don't believe it. There I was looking at the clothes in Roy's windows when someone came and stood beside me, and I looked around, and should it be but Danny Cassie? All right, what does he look like? Oh, come on. You know what he looks like. Close to I mean. Well, he was green eyes, gentle eyes, and he is not so tall as you would think. She wondered if she should say about his teeth, but decided against it. Their father had washed when he came in, and his face and arms were shiny and pink, and he smelled of soap. He switched on the television, tossed one of little Derek's shoes from his chair into the sofa, sat down with a grunt. Sophie met Danny Cassie, Job said. Sophie wriggled where she was sitting at the table. Her father turned his head on his thick neck to look at her. His expression was one of the disdain. It's true, Geoff said. I once knew a man who had known Tom Finney, his father said reverently to the television. But that was a long time ago, you told us, Geoff said. Chasey might be that good someday. Better than that, even he's the best. If he keeps his head on his shoulders, if they look after him properly. A lot of distractions for a youngster in the game these days. He'll be all right. He's with the best team in the country. He's very young yet. He's older than I am. Too young really for the first team. You can't argue with that sort of ability. He is going to buy a shop, Sophie said from the table. Her father grimaced. Where would you hear that? He told me so. He muttered something inaudible and dragged himself round his chair. This is another of your wild stories. She met him in the arcade, Job said, and told him how it had been. One of these days you are going to talk yourself on a lot of trouble, her father said aggressively. Geoff knows it's true, don't you, Geoff? He don't believe you, though he would like to. The table lamp cast an amber glow across her brother's bedroom wall and across the larger poster of United's first team squad and row of colored photographs beneath, three of them all the young Irish prodigy Chessie. Promise you will tell no one, Sophie said. Nothing to tell is there. Promise you. Dad murder me. Only if you thought it was true. Please, Geoff. Chris Sophie are still at school. Jesse must have string of girls. No, he doesn't. How could you know that? He jeered. He told me that's how. As if anyone would tell a girl something like that. Yes, he did. He isn't like that. He's quite not as quiet as all that apparently. It was nothing like that, Geoff. It was me spoke first. When I saw who it was, I said, excuse me, but aren't you Danny Chassis? And he looked sort of surprised and he said, yes, that's right. And I knew it must be him because he had the accent, like when they interviewed him on the television. So I asked him for an autograph for little Derek, but neither of us had any paper or a pen. So then we just talked a bit about the close in Roy's windows. He seemed lonely. After all, it's a long way from the west of Ireland. And then, just as he was going, he said, if I could care to meet him next week, he would give me an autograph then. Of course, I said I would. As he would ever show up. You do believe me now, don't you? He dragged his jacket, which was shiny and shapeless, from the back of the chair and pushed his arms into it. She wished he paid more attention to his appearance, wished he cared more about clothes, was tall with a strong dark face, handsome, she thought. It's the unlikeliest thing I ever heard, he said. On Saturday, they made their weekly pilgrimage to watch United. Sophie and her father and little Derek went down near the goal. Geoff, as always, went with his mates higher up. United won 2-0 and Chelsea drowned in the second goal, as blind of innocence and Irish genius going round the two big defenders on the edge of the penalty area with her father screaming for him to pass and beating his assistant goalkeeper from a dozen yards. Sophie glowed with pride. Afterwards, Geoff was ecstatic. I wish he was Englishman, someone said on the bus. Ireland, I will win the World Cup. Little Derek told his mother when Sophie brought him home, her father was gone to the pub to celebrate. What this you have been telling? Janzi said, next week about what? Your golf told. Oh, Frank, you met Danny Chassis. This wasn't an inquisition, just Jancy being on nosy. But Sophia was startled. Oh, that. Jancy frowned, sensing she was covering as that. Well, as I did. You never did, Jancy exclaimed. Sophie glared at the ground. Damn that Geoff. This was a Geoff thing, not a Jazzy thing. It was meant to be something special, just between them, something secret. It wasn't a Jancy kind of thing at all. Tell Joaquin Jancy something like that, and whole neighborhood would get to know it. Damn, that Geoff was nothing scared. It's a secret meant to be. I'll keep a secret soft. You know that. It wasn't going to tell anyone. There will be a right old row if my dad gets to hear about it. Jancy blinked. A row? I would have thought he would be chuffled as anything. She realized that the Jancy didn't know about the date bit. Geoff hadn't told about that. She breathed more easily, so Geoff hadn't let her down after all. He believed in her after all. After all, some things might be scared. It was just a little thing, really. I asked him for an autograph, but we haven't any paper of a pen, so it was no good. How much had Job said? Jesus, I wish I would have been there. Of course, my dad didn't want to believe it. You know what a mystery he is. But the last thing I need is queues of people around our house asking him, what's all this about Danny Chasey? He would murder me. And you know how my mum gets when there's a rope. Jancy said, hushed. You can trust me, soft. You know that. After dark, she walked by the canal, along a sheltered path lightened only by the glare of the lamps from the wharf across the water, and the unceasing drone of the city was muffled and distant. It was a place she had often played in when she was a child. There was a wooden bench beneath a solitary elm where lovers sometimes skate. She sat down to wait. It was the perfect place, she had always thought so, for a meeting of this kind. For those who wished not to be observed, she knew he would approve. For some while, waiting, she imagined his coming. She watched along the canal, seeing him come out of the shadows, imagining her own consequent excitement. Not until some time had elapsed did she begin balancing against this idea of his not coming. Here I sit, she said to herself, wishing Danny would come, wishing he would come and sensing the time passing. I feel the pangs of doubt stirring inside me. I watch for him, but still there is no sign of him. I remember Job saying he would never come and how none of them believed me when I told him. I wonder what will I do? What can I tell them now if doesn't come. But we know how it was. Danny and me. That's the main thing. How can you help what people choose to believe? But at all the same, it makes me despondent. This knowing he will never be able to show them they are wrong to doubt me. She waited, measuring in his way the changes taking place in her. Resignation was no sudden thing. Now I have become sad, she thought, and it is a hard burden to carry. His sadness, sitting here waiting and knowing he will not come, I can see the future and how I will have to live with this burden. They, of course, will doubt me, as they always doubted me, but I will have to hold up my head remembering how it was. Already, I anticipate the slow walk home and Jeff's disappointment face when I tell him he didn't come that Danny. And then he will fly out and slam the door. But we know how it was. I shall tell myself, Danny and me. It's a hard thing, his sadness. She climbed the crumbling steps to the street. Outside the pub, she passed her father's bicycle propped against the wall and was glad. He would not be there when she got home. Excuse me, but aren't you Danny Chassis? Coming through the arcade, she pictured him again outside Roy's. He turns reddening slightly. Yes, that's right. I watch you every week with my dad and my brothers. We think you are great. Oh, well, now, that's very nice. I wonder, would you mind signing an autograph? His eyes are on the same level as your own. His nose is freckled and turns upward slightly, and when he smiles, he does so shyly, exposing the teeth with gaps between. His eyes are green, and then he looks straight at you. They seem to shimmer then seem gentle, almost afraid, like it dazzles, and you look away. You let his eyes run over you a little, and then you come back to find them slightly breathless. And he says, I don't seem to have a pen at all. You realize you haven't either. My brothers will be very sorry, you say. And afterwards, you wait there alone in the arcade for a long while. Standing there, he stood, remembering the soft, melodious voice, the shimmer of green eyes, no taller than you, no bolder than you, no the prodigy, the innocent genius, the great Danny Chassis. And she saw all it again last Saturday, saw him go past the lumbering defenders, heard the 50,000 cat their breath as he hovered momentarily over the ball and then explosion of sound as he struck it crisply into the goal. The sudden thunderous eruptions of the effluent approbation. So that's all about this chapter. Here is the working with words and noticing form, thinking about language, writing, everything it is given here, just go through it. Okay, so if you are interested, please do like, share and subscribe my channel. Okay, thank you.